We talk a lot about ports on Punching Weight, but it's usually about a downgrade in hardware. Our fascination and admiration for these types of ambitious, arguably unnecessary projects will never fade, but it's time we change gears and talk about the other side of the coin, when old games are brought up into new hardware with incredible results. It's another topic we've touched on previously, like on Earth Defense Force 4.1 and recently with Wild Guns Reloaded, but it's time we dig a little deeper. Welcome back to Punching Weight. Toss your original copies out the window. In this episode, we're all about remakes, remasters, and re-releases that are better than the originals. What's the number one problem with remakes? They always remake games that were already good, or were at least successful, instead of using the opportunity to take another crack at a bad game. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna keep remaking games just once, make it a terrible one. Enter 2009's Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth for the Nintendo WiiWare. It is a remake of the 1989 Game Boy game, which may be the single worst Castlevania game of all time. But if its sequel, Belmont's Revenge, is any indication, it's a game that could have worked with a little extra polish. Poor hit detection and bad controls were the real culprits here. Also, how maddeningly easy it was to lose your whip upgrades. Oh god, I promised myself years ago I'd never play this game again. It's not exactly a one-to-one remake of the original game, but Rebirth uses it as a framework. The fully upgraded whip shoots fireballs, there's a lot of these giant rolling eyeballs, these bouncy ball shooting plant jerks, and the Grim Reaper dudes that aren't exactly the axe armors, but otherwise, it's an original game. But whoa, wait a minute now. Does it even really count as a remake or a remaster? Well, I say it does, because a lot of this stuff only appears in these three Castlevania games. They took what really worked with the Game Boy games and threw the rest out, which is the textbook example of the proper way to remake a bad game. Keep what works and then start fresh. It only sounds weird because no one ever does it. Adventure Rebirth also gets points for being the last Vintage-Vania game released in the series, in between a slew of the Metroidvania games and before the God of Vania Lord of Shadows games. It's got 6 challenging, well-designed levels with tons of clever enemy designs and great platforming. 6 levels might not sound like much, but each has branching paths, typically gated behind locked doors, whose keys occupy your precious sub-weapon slot. It ain't as hard as some of the NES Castlevania games. For example, there's an option to make your jump less stiff, but there's still some of that old-school challenge there, don't worry. It was developed by M2, who did 2 other Rebirth WiiWare games, one for Contra and another for Gradius. They went on to make all of Sega's 3D arcade remakes for the 3DS. I'm not sure this game gets the love it deserves, but that may have to do with the fact that it's been languishing on the Wii U and Wii eShops. At this point, we're not sure if the WiiWare library will be ported to the Switch. It may be down to publisher Konami, which, by the way, they're bringing a new Bomberman game to the Switch, so I guess it's not completely out of the picture. Anyway, we highly recommend you dust off your Wii or Wii U for a fantastic reimagining of a terrible Castlevania game. There exists more than a few great games whose only problem was that they were released on the wrong system. In these cases, sometimes all a good remaster needs to do is slap on a fresh coat of paint, beef up the frame rate, and maybe update the controls. There are a lot of great examples of this, like Earth Defense Force 4.1, but there's another that is personally very near and dear to my heart. Perfect Dark for the N64 was an incredibly ambitious game. So packed with impressive tech and content, you'd swear that there were stretch marks on the cartridge. But without an expansion pack, you could only play 30% of the freaking game. And let's be honest, even with an expansion pack, the game suffered enormous frame rate problems. 4-player deathmatch with too many bots, and the counter-op missions were nearly unplayable. Not to mention that N64 controller doesn't offer a whole lot of precision. Even though I was obsessed with this game back in the day, putting in more than 100 combined hours into the campaign and combat simulator, I knew even then it was not living up to its full potential. Enter the HD remastered version for Xbox Live Arcade and bundled with Rare Replay, technically just called Perfect Dark. Not to diminish the hard work that went into it, this remaster simply beefs up the frame rate, polishes up the graphics, and lets you play on a dual analog controller. Other than Xbox Live support, it doesn't add anything new to the game, but seeing this game running at a consistent frame rate and playing on the 360 controller makes this the definitive version of Perfect Dark, superior to the N64 version in every meaningful way. Credit goes to 4J Studios, who also made the excellent Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie remasters and the million console ports of Minecraft. It is debatable whether or not this game, or its predecessor GoldenEye, hold up in this day and age, but this is still one of the most feature-filled video games ever. Each level of the campaign is a Hitman-type little world that can be replayed endlessly. There are so many crazy guns and gadgets, and so much customization in the multiplayer mode, it's insane. You can now use the N-bomb and the Farsight in multiplayer without fear that your system is going to catch fire and explode. It's a shame we never got the GoldenEye HD remaster, even though it was apparently finished. we at least got to see Perfect Dark as it was originally meant to be played. Up next, an example of a game that doesn't need to be remastered, but if you're going to do it, here's how to do it. I personally believe Super Mario Bros. Is the greatest and most important game ever made. It's a game Nintendo will gladly sell to people over and over again over as many systems as possible, but the more accessible, the better. I guess there was a time when Nintendo wasn't so sure people would really buy an old game again, because unlike the GBA version, which was just a straight port, they went nuts with Super Mario Bros. Deluxe for the Game Boy Color, making it maybe the most bonus-filled re-release of all time. First of all, Deluxe has the original Super Mario Bros., complete with new overworld animations and a save feature, as well as the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2, better known in the West as the Lost Levels. Plus, you can switch to Luigi anytime you want, and that's pretty neat. So already, you're good. But then there's the all-new challenge mode, where you must find 5 red coins, achieve a set high score, and find the invisible Yoshi block in each level. You can link up with a friend and play versus mode, or race in custom levels against boos, and let me tell you, these levels get super tough. And then there's a slew of totally unnecessary stuff, like a roulette to help you find the Yoshi blocks in challenge mode, a room where you can hang out with the princess and all the toads you've rescued, a freaking day planner, a fortune teller minigame, an album book that basically acts as an early form of achievements or trophies. Pictures can be printed on the Game Boy printer if you have one of those lying around, and oh yeah, did you know that the Game Boy had a printer and a camera? Ah, the days before smartphones. Anyway, there's so much extra content here, you could easily put in 100 hours into this game. It's just incredible. The one problem, the one major potentially deal-breaking problem, is the screen size. In order to avoid having to redraw the sprites to fit on the Game Boy Color screen, Deluxe features a much smaller field of vision. You are able to scroll up, down, forward, and even walk backwards a little bit, but it makes the later levels extra challenging and the lost levels damn near impossible, but I never enjoyed those levels much anyway. Depending on your preference, this makes it not, quote, better than the original. We understand that, but the screen size didn't stop me from pumping dozens of hours into this game in high school. I personally say you'd be a fool to let that stop you from enjoying this incredible version, but hey, you do you. And before we conclude, we have an honorable mention. Double Dragon 4 has just come out. We haven't had a chance to play it yet, but it promises to be a return to the classic NES Double Dragons a lot of us grew up playing. Now, we have exactly zero problems with resurrecting an old franchise and giving it the Mega Man 9 treatment, but I want to quickly mention a couple things. First off, there already was a Double Dragon 5, which I'm pretty sure makes Super Double Dragon on the Super Nintendo Double Dragon 4. And second, if you've been hungry for some classic Double Dragon action, it's already been out there in the form of Double Dragon Neon. There's also Double Dragon Advance, but I've always had a soft spot for Neon. This is a fantastic brawler that's also a fantastic parody of 80s pop culture in general. Definitely one of WayForward's best games. It gets an honorable mention because it's more of an original game in the series than a remake, even more so than Castlevania Rebirth. It doesn't exactly fit on this list, but we just wanted to give it a quick shout out. In Punching Weight, we try to stick to just 3 games per episode, but it was super hard for this one, so let us know what your favorite updated ports are, and of course, if there are any weird, ambitious, and unnecessary games you'd like to see on Punching Weight, let us know in the comments below, and we will add it to our giant, ever-growing list of games. Thanks for watching. If you want to see previous episodes of Punching Weight, the Resident Evil 2 video on the left will take you to the playlist, and we're putting the finishing touches on our Keiji Inafune video, which will act as the follow-up to our Mighty No. 9 Kickstarter breakdown video. That's the video on the right if you need to get caught up. Stop Skeletons from Fighting is a Patreon-supported show and would not be possible without the generosity of every one of these fine people. If you'd like to help out and see your name here, click the logo and give what you can. 2016 was our most prolific year in the history of this channel, and we have every intention of beating that record in 2017, so be sure to stick around. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.